also to individual Americans who hope to enter and remain in the middle class. Our generation is facing a crisis. More and more of us are strapped with debt we can't possibly pay within a reasonable amount of time. This has caused us to postpone continuing our education beyond a bachelor's degree, buying a house, and even getting married. Going to college was a dream of mine. I knew I wanted a better life for myself as well as to provide for my family. I was told that going to college would help me do so. I didn't fully realize the amount of debt I would owe after graduation and how that would affect my life. Strapped with $30,000 of debt is something I struggle with painfully every day. Having completed my bachelor's degree and wanting to pursue a master's degree, I postponed my goal for fear of owing more and not being able to pay back a mortgage-sized debt. Going to college was my vehicle to achieving the American dream. But the American dream will cease to exist for millions of people like me if we don't start prioritizing education. Congressman Clark realizes this. He understands the challenges that we face as young people and as a nation. This is why he introduced the Student Loan Forgiveness Act of 2012, or HR 4170. The past 6 months, my organization, USSA, and students across the country have fought for the extension of the 3.4% interest rate on subsidized loans, which looks like it will pass this week. We will fight for it again next year when it's due to expire. But with Congressman Clark's Student Loan Forgiveness Act, students don't have to, because this bill will permanently maintain the interest rate at 3.4, and we don't have to fight for this continually, little breadcrumbs here and there. Our student loan will be forgiven if we pay them in 10 years, and as fast as 5 years if we decide to enter public loan forgiveness or public service jobs. There are so many great provisions in the Student Loan Forgiveness Act, so there's no surprise that 1 million students have signed the petition that we are delivering today. By passing the Student Loan Forgiveness Act, we have an opportunity to prioritize education and put students and country first. 3 out of 4 Americans believe that education is a right, and I'm sure all of us here do too. I think it's time that Congress starts to act on this belief and pass the Student Loan Forgiveness Act for everyone. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isaac Bowers. I'm here from Equal Justice Works. I work in our educational debt relief program, and the mission of that program is to make sure that Americans who want to do public service work are not held back by the burden of educational debt. And it will not surprise any of you, I'm sure, to know that with $1 trillion and growing in student debt, many, many people who want to do public service work are struggling to do it because of that burden. We literally get calls from thousands of people every month who say, you know, I'm doing this job at a legal aid defenders association, as a public defender, as a social worker, in local government, and I have $50,000 or $100,000 or $150,000 in debt, and I don't see any way to get out of it. I don't see any end in sight. And this is despite programs like public service loan forgiveness and income-based repayment, which are good, but not sufficient. HR 4170, the Student Debt Forgiveness Act, is sufficient. This is a truly transformational piece of legislation. It will not surprise people to hear that among those thousands of people who call up, all of them ask us, what's happening with the Student Debt Forgiveness Act? When can we count on this? Is this going to become reality? And we send them to Robert Applebaum's site. We urge them to call their members of Congress. We urge them to call their senators, and we say, let's make this happen because it really does need to happen. Just a couple of things in that act that I haven't been touched on that will really help people. First of all, it has provisions that will help people get out from under the burden of private loans. And for those of you who don't know, as hard as it is to have a huge debt in federal loans, at least you have the eligibility for programs like public service loan forgiveness, income-driven repayment plans, hardship deferments. You don't have those options if you have private loans, and we speak to people all the time who didn't have the option to get federal loans when they went to graduate school, who had to take out private loans when they were undergrads, and who are never seeing any end in sight. This act, thanks to Henson Clark, would make a first step towards allowing people to get out from under that burden of private loans. Another thing we like about this, it has retroactive forgiveness provisions. We talk to people all the time who have been diligently paying their student loans for 10, 15, 20 years while doing work in the public interest. and they are not eligible for some of these forgiveness programs. Under the 1010 repayment plan, these people who have been paying back their loans for a long time can earn forgiveness. So we want to thank Robert Applebaum for his work in initiating this discussion. We want to thank Representative Clark for creating what is truly a transformative piece of legislation. And we want to make sure that everybody here, everybody who's a student, everybody who's a graduate, everybody who knows somebody who is suffering under the burden of student debt is pushing Congress to move this forward. This is a bill that absolutely has to happen. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony Mitchell, and I'm the National Legislative Advocacy Specialist for the National Black Law Students Association. 7 years ago, I sat in the kitchen with my mother and father discussing my plans for college. I had graduated at the top of my high school class and was fortunate enough to receive a football scholarship, decreasing my amount of debt. After I was leaving college as the oldest of 4 children and the son of parents that reiterated the importance of education, going to college was both a dream and an opportunity to further myself intellectually. 4 years later, after completing my undergraduate degree, me and my parents sat down for another discussion at that very kitchen table. The tone of that discussion was very much different. At the age of 22, I had accumulated $10,000 worth of debt. Going to law school would easily surpass that amount by hundreds of thousands of dollars. At this fork in the road, I had to choose between what I always thought was my dream and entering the workforce to save myself from financial strain in the future. One should never, ever have to make this type of decision. I decided to follow my dream and go to law school, but for many Americans, higher education is a financial nightmare. Education should never be a debt sentence to one's hopes and aspirations. In a time where both a high school and college diploma are a rocky road to economic success, an affordable education is key to our country's financial stability and innovative well-being. Because of the escalating cost of education, the college access gap between those of lower to upper class families is at its highest. College tuitions are at an all-time high, and millions of students find themselves in the hole with no way to get out. The National Black Law Students Association supports Congressman Clark in helping students like you and me to have an easier road to financial freedom. Through his bill, students now have a viable way to attack their loans, all while obtaining both financial and economic security. NBALSA fully supports Congressman Clark and the Student Loan Forgiveness Act. As voting students, we must hold our elected officials accountable and start the conversation that enables a better economic future for all. Again, I think it's very important that we thank Congressman Clark and Mr. Applebaum for their initiatives. Thank you. Woo!
Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate all the support we've gotten from the Student Loan Forgiveness Act and the million signatures we've gotten from Americans who support the Student Loan Forgiveness Act and a wholesale change in access to higher education. Thank you.
Is there any move-on people here? If we could gather together, I'd like to get a photograph. Great. Move-on people?
Since they have been signed the petition.
If that's the case, then I got everything.
It's also available. If there are any questions.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. So you're, what school are you in? Okay. Yeah. This is Sydney. Oh, yeah. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Okay. This is Eva.
Well, I mean, Robert did a huge amount, and so did some of the
We need that. I saw that. Oh, Gino, my God, look at you.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh, my God. You know what? You're totally different with the suit on, brother.
I was actually, I was up in the chapter, which
Oh my gosh, was it yesterday?
It was last week, last Tuesday.
Oh my god, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, so okay, hold on. Let me get a quick interview.
Okay.
Do you think online, like, motivators will really for the movement? It really seems to be the best way right now to
So you okay? So there's a lot of support for this, 1 million signatures. What do you think the real chances are this thing's going to go anywhere?
It has to. Here's why. This Congress has to start listening to the American people. The problem with Washington is that it's so focused on politics, it doesn't listen to what the American people want. So it talks all about this political rhetoric, yet what folks are saying, they want student loan debt. 1 million people here, we're going to demand that Congress do something and cut this stuff. So the chances are we've got to make this system work for people.
What's the next step? Where's this bill go from here?
Well, it's in committee right now. What I'm going to do is keep the public pressure on members of Congress to support the bill and call for a hearing, get it reported out of the committee, reported out of the House, and then work with the Senate as well to get it.
Do you think that Congress or whatever your colleagues are not understanding the implications that student loan debt has on the economy? Or because we heard like 85% of students are moving back in with their parents.
Yes. Here's the problem right now with Congress.
Housing, I mean,
is that they're only thinking about how they can tweak the system and maintain the system because everybody here politically benefits from it. They get campaign donations from the financial services industry. That's why things don't really happen. What we're doing right now is mobilizing the country to put pressure on Congress to make Congress listen to what the public wants. They want the student loan debt cut on the graduates, cut on the parents that had to take out all this money. Over $1 trillion, it's too much debt. So this is really a people's movement. The pressure is coming from the American public, from outside of the system, to demand that Congress start working for us. So that's what's so extraordinary about this. It's not just the concept of giving every student loan borrower a chance to pay down their debt according to their income and to get excessive debt forgiven, but it's creating a national movement where the American people are now going to take control of their government and demand that Congress start working for them. And one way that Congress can do that is by cutting and forgiving student loans.
So what do you say to those who say, hey, this is just another bailout. We don't need another bailout. It's just another form of a bailout.
Well, here's the problem. If we don't help people who are struggling with their student loan debt, the American taxpayer are going to have to pay for those debts if the student loan borrower can't afford to pay. So this really does the opposite. This makes it easier for a borrower to pay down their debt so the taxpayers won't have to bail out the student loan system. This actually provides people with more of their hard-earned money so they can keep it versus spending it to the federal government, paying it to the federal government as student loan payments. Now people can invest their own money, start their own business. So this is about allowing our college graduates and their parents to actually use their money for their own benefit and not paying it to the federal government on student loan debt.
You're welcome. Can I get a quick comment on healthcare?
Oh yeah, totally. The Supreme Court ruled today that healthcare is a basic human right for all Americans, and the court understands the economics, is that we need more people, healthy people, to buy health insurance in order to lower the cost of health insurance for every American, especially Americans who are already sick and need doctors to go to. So upholding the individual mandate will make sure that health insurance is going to be affordable for everyone, because we'll have healthy people buying health insurance. That lowers the cost of health insurance for all Americans.
Do you think this helps President Obama's political campaign?
I know it's the right thing to do,
Right.
and we got to do it. And the president took the lead. The president risked his political career to make sure that everyone has access to health insurance, which is the right thing to do. And ultimately, the American people will hire a politician if they know that person's really committed to helping us.
Sure. You got anything more? Good? Thank you.
Hey man,
Pleasure seeing you.
Cheeto man.
We'll see you back in Detroit.
Okay,
huh?
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Hi. Yeah, right. It's good.
Yeah.
You're good. Hey, all right. That was blinded by it for a second there.
Good speech, by the way. Very good.
What is it? Thank you
Good
so much.
speech. All
I
right.
really appreciate that.
I'm Felipe. I'm from New York.
New York?
Yeah, I came here to help out Robert, videotape so he can put it on his website
Oh, okay.
and everything like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Suffering from the same problem.
Yeah, it's really
ridiculous.
painful.
Yeah.
Like,
My
I
fiance has been like, you know, she has like a $30,000 debt, and I said, well, how long you had that? She's like, oh, it's been like 9 years. Has it gone down? She's like, no, it's still in the 30s. I'm like, hey, you see?
I actually only like I thought I had around $24,000 worth of debt, and then just a couple of months ago they hit me with a debt that I guess I took out that I didn't know wasn't on my like list of the Department of Education. It's able to be consolidated with it, but they didn't do it. It's a different type of federal loan. It was a Perkins loan, and so when I got hit with that, it was just like it just skyrocketed another. It was a $5,000 loan, but with the interest and the fees that I didn't know about because I hadn't moved the next day.
Just
It
goes
became
up.
30, yeah. I was like, oh crap.
Never heard a story like that.
Good job, Robert.
You're making
Thank
fun
you.
of me right now.
No, I'm just making fun.
Yeah.
The battery died at the end of the congressman's speech. I was like, oh crap! So I was like, you know, I gotta.
But you
load
have
this
it
up.
all on this?
I have all this. Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Definitely.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Wonderful. Thank you. Same here. Oh, now the breeze is coming.
You know, nah, so when we don't need it.
Would you be able to mute 5?
Yeah. Well, isn't that Tom Hartman?
That's Tom Hartman's
Different show. Okay. Same place?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that gives me something to do after.
I will work on setting that up now.
Okay.
Any final word for the group before I shut off?
Thank you for your support. Thanks to all the 1 million plus people who signed the petition. Thanks to all those who've come here, and special thanks to Felipe for filming this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.